Teonna.
And I'm Travis.
And this is I Now Pronounce You,
where we reflect on our experiences and give our opinions.
It can be hard to take the time to process it all.
So we're making the time now.
We welcome you to I Now Pronounce You.
Hey. All right.
Hey.
Make you want to do it, though.
It does.
Hey.
Let's get into it. Married.
Indeed.
Hey, everybody. I'm a little sad, honey.
Why, baby?
Because I made my cup of tea and it's all gone now.
You drank your whole cup of tea already?
It was so good. It was peppermint tea.
That sounds good.
It was really good with a little bit of stevia and some honey.
Sounds delicious.
It was delicious, but I don't feel like going back upstairs and making more. So
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So today we're talking about marriage.
Yeah.
So we've been married for about 6.5 years, which, maybe that's not significant to a lot of people, but we have been at this thing for like 14 years.
Yeah, we've been together for a long time, baby.
Yeah, so even though there were bumps along the way, they ultimately made us stronger and to the point that we are today.
It did.
So how did we get here, babe?
It's a long road, meeting each other at a young age at 17 and, getting to know each other and falling madly in love with each other. And,
very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly at a very young age and, having to grow with each other, having some pitfalls, but, everything worked in divine purpose and we brought it back together.
Yeah. So we got married in 2014.
Yep. Great year.
It was a great year. We had Tyson at the end of that year.
Yeah, easy money.
We had our first, we had our first apartment the year before that.
Oh, yeah. Easy money came shortly after.
Stop calling him that.
Easy money, man.
And why do you call Tyson easy money?
Because we played Monopoly and he dogged everybody in Monopoly and he didn't know how to play the game. So he just had all the money. And after that, I was like, oh, easy money. Easy money, man.
Oh, Lord.
Good guy.
So maybe we can just start here.
Sure.
What do you think was the moment that you were like, okay, I'm going to get married after this or because of this?
Oh, man, everything just felt so natural. I think, when we first started dating again, for the final time, and we went out to dinner, and everything just seemed natural.
Like fall 2012.
Yeah, and everything just seemed so natural, and the energy was there. It was such a great energy there. I just was like, yeah, it's time to lock this thing down because I couldn't imagine anybody else sitting in this other seat. Having a conversation with my wife, because I already had started portraying you as my wife in my brain. So I think that I knew it was time.
So, y'all, Travis always describes things so sweetly and beautifully. And when he's describing it beautifully, in my head, I'm thinking about all the negative things.
Sunny side up, guys. That's me.
I think of all the negative things. Like, I'm thinking in my head, like, I still remember being in the Safeway parking lot, early fall of 2013, and we weren't together, and I just had to get some things off my chest, and I think we were doing a drop off for Tamara, and either she was asleep or she was in your car, whatever. We had a moment to talk, and I remember telling you I think I finally figured out why we don't work, why things...
And why was that, sweetheart?
Because we started out so young at 17 that by the time we threw a kid in the mix and 2 breakups in the mix, I think that we just didn't have any positive things to think about. So we didn't have any good memories. Okay. So when we got together and we would talk about things, we always would divert back to something negative. Yeah,
and I think you have to have positive memories when you're in a up and down relationship or an in and out kind of situation.
So, I just remember being like, we should date. And you end up agreeing. And then we started going on dates. And so that those would be our positive things
and
to
the
kind of
dates,
look back at.
In my defense, the dates were amazing. you
They
know.
were. We had a good time. It was just chill and relax. We would go.
Hibachi spots, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
We would go eat sushi, or
Yeah.
we would go like sit at a bar and drink wine and VA, or I don't really remember us going to see movies.
Yeah, we weren't.
I think it was a lot of like
Yeah.
dining and hanging out, like
A lot of dining.
overstaying our welcome at restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. Like weird eyes from the waitresses, and I'm like, we gonna tip you, man. Go ahead.
So you were saying your moment was when?
That one of the last dinners we had when we were dating, I think we were actually in a very nice like hibachi spot in Virginia. They had like waterfalls by some of the booths, and I remember we talked a little, but we didn't talk a lot. I think a lot of it was just like amorous gazing, just looking at each other, and we were just like,
I
man,
think
this
I
is
do remember
so
that.
easy.
Yeah.
I was like, life would be so easy if just me and her just like go ahead and start a family and just enjoy each other. And just I was like, man, everything could just be so simple. And I think that's when I knew that everything was good.
Okay. My experience was different. My moment was different. So do you remember we took a road trip to Georgia to visit your grandfather and your
I
aunt and
do.
stuff? It
I
was
do.
Thanksgiving, I think.
I do remember that.
Was it
Yep.
Thanksgiving?
I
Yeah,
think that was a year before we got married.
it was.
Yep.
So it was during that time that I met everybody for the first time because, I knew your family that lived here, but I didn't know your family that lived there, your biological father's family.
Yep.
So I remember going and your aunt pulling me to the side and kind of asking me questions about kind of like the state of our relationship and where we saw things going. And in that moment, I didn't know because on this trip, we actually got in an argument and
We
we were at odds
we
and
did.
like didn't even want to stay in the, same hotel room, and kind of just, I don't even remember what it was about, but I just remember us being at odds and kind of doing our own thing while at the hotel. And so when we went to visit your family, that energy of us kind of being distant was brought into that room, but I think we tried to fake it till we make it. But your
Yeah.
aunt pulling me to the side and her being able to describe you
To the T.
in an honest way, not Travis is an awesome person. Like, he's just great, isn't he? Like, her being able to be like, these are his pitfalls. These are things that I know he needs to work on, but these are some of his amazing and great qualities. And you guys should bring God into your life and, really work towards it.
Absolutely.
And her giving an honest perspective of marriage isn't easy. And then I was like, oh, wow. Like, I think we actually could do this. Like, she's describing him in a way that
I love my aunt.
she's describing him in a way that I see him, and she sees something in us. And just having like somebody just take an interest or a liking and say that, you know what, you two could make it, made me feel empowered, like
Yeah.
that I wanted to get married.
I know you mentioned that story a few times, but especially mentioning it now is just like, wow, like we had people in our corner that were rooting us on, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Because it just brings me back to like Michelle Obama, when she talks about life, she says that there should be people who walk ahead of you that you look up to, people that walk beside you that kind of are taking the journey with you, and then people who you reach back for and bring along the way.
Huh.
And she talks about that in the
It's a
sense
good
of,
concept.
yeah, she talks about that in the sense of just like life. But I really think that that should be marriage. Like, you should have
Yeah.
an OG couple that you look up to.
For sure.
You should have a couple that's married around the same time that you are. And then you should have a couple that maybe aren't married yet or are in the beginning stages of marriage.
Baby, who was the couple that was the older couple that I think spoke with Will and Jada about, their marriage, and when they sat down and I think they had dinner or tea or something like that.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
And they mentioned that, hey, how long have you known Will? And I think Jada mentioned 10 years, and she said, oh, well, you don't even know him yet.
I do remember
Yeah.
that, but I don't remember like who it actually was.
Yeah. It was some sort of very prestiged actress
Yeah.
and actor. But I related to that because
Was it Ruby and Ozzy?
it may
Maybe
have
not.
it may have been, honey.
don't
I
know.
can't say for sure, but I thought that was a dope concept because I would love to have dinner with like a couple that's been married for 30 years to sit with us and to speak with them and just for them to give us their insight. I would love that.
I think the OG couple, the only OG couple I really can think of is Aunt Shorty and Coin.
Yeah,
But we
they
don't
some
pick their brain
OGs.
enough. Like we've asked them some questions, but we haven't like done a deep dive at
And I'm
all.
I'm interested honestly because when you talk about their marriage just from observation of being a young couple, it seems like they're very much in love.
I think they've been married for like 40 years.
Wow,
I feel like,
that's an accomplishment.
or close to. Yeah, like 40 years. Yeah. So I think it's important to kind of pick people's brains that's been at it for a long time.
Do you
And
think it's important to have sort of a marriage role model to kind of look up to
yeah,
in order to have a successful marriage?
not necessarily to look up to, but a couple that are still in the game and that can give you the real.
Facts.
Because movies and things like that make it seem like you're gonna find your prince, and he's gonna treat you like a queen and life will be so great, but they don't talk about.
We talk about you mentioned the Obamas earlier, and I think Barack. No, it was Michelle that actually mentioned that there are going to be bad years.
Yeah, like
Yeah, go ahead, baby.
oh, I was just gonna piggyback off that. She said that if you've been married for 50 years and you've had 10 bad years, she looks at that as a win.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, and it's not going to be easy all the way through. I mean, man, I could just imagine, having a rough year and you just quitting and just throwing things away. I mean, it just shows the tenacity between anything that you're trying to pursue.
But I think we may have did that if we didn't. Maybe I think it's easier now in the age of like social media and people being transparent, because when you have people talking about marriage and they're being honest about it, like, and I hate to keep referring to Michelle Obama, but she really did talk a lot about her marriage with Barack and how they went to counseling and how they've just done different things to kind of enrich their marriage, because you look at someone like that, like, oh, look at them. They just look so happy and so blissful.
Right.
And for her to like pull back a layer and say, oh no, this is the real, this is what it was, this is what it is, and that's okay. That's great to me.
Do you have any mantras that like some of the married OGs shared with you to be like, in order to have a successful marriage, you need to do these 3 things or these,
No,
this
and
one thing.
that's the issue. I remember when we would, I think before we got married and even after we got married, when we would get into like little tiffs, you would say, we don't have a healthy marriage to look up to and aspire to that someone could talk to us about. So
Facts.
when things are turbulent, we just think, you know what, that must mean we're not right for each other.
Which is the millennial mind frame of the get out while you can, or it's your life, do what you want, YOLO type, but you can miss out.
You think that's a millennial mind frame?
Yeah.
I think that's
Microwave babies. That's what we,
I think
my
Gen
generalized
Gen
statement.
X thinks like that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, millennials and after. I think that we live in this YOLO type of mind frame where it's like, yo, it's my life. Everything is in my control, and it's good to think in that mind frame when it comes to career wise. But when you think about relationships and things like that, I mean, it's just not easy work. It takes work. You have to want to be married. You have to want to see your marriage succeed. There's plenty of nights where I can't think of in the last few years or in the last year or so where we've gone to bed mad at each other. If we're upset, we hash that thing out right then and there, and we have that conversation and we try to get it to a peaceful state where like we're going to talk about this again tomorrow, but just know that I'm not going anywhere and you're not going anywhere, type of thing.
People debate about that. Like, some people think that's a misconception and think like it's okay to go to bed. Like, some people will say that as a mantra. You shouldn't go to bed angry or you shouldn't go to bed mad. And then others will say, well, you need that time to cool off. I feel like you should use that time where you're...
To reflect?
Yeah, like if you're disagreeing, yeah, you may need to take a little bit to cool off, but you still should have the conversation. But it just depends case by case. Like, okay, if I know that you're ticked off about something, and oftentimes when I'm trying to communicate with you, we'll have a breach in communication where
Right.
we are literally saying the same thing.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed.
But
especially
in different words.
This year has been amazing for us because I feel like this year is when I've started to notice that myself. I know you've noticed that a long time.
No, I think you brought it to my attention, actually.
Yeah, I'm like, baby, I remember one time we was getting in a heated argument. I'm like, baby, we are saying the same thing in a different language, And what I try to realize is that, we are literally saying the same things, but we're just presenting it in different ways. And I just try to make sure that we're both, visualizing that, like, we're on the same damn team, dog.
Well, that's important to... Yeah. That's important to remember. Like, I remember I used to always tell you that. Sometimes I would feel like it was you against me, and I guess you could say the same thing, that it was me against you. But when we remember that it's us against the world, then it puts things in perspective.
Ooh, I love that vision.
Yeah, like legit.
I love that vision.
When we have disagreements, I have to verbally say it, and when I say it, I feel like
I snap back into reality.
Yeah, and so do I. Like, sometimes you'll say it before me. Like, you'll say, like, I'm not the enemy here. And then I'm like, oh. It's like it melts the frost or the tension that's building up and kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah, it's like, I'm your homeboy, baby. Like, we're on the same team.
It's me.
It's me, Trav. Like, it's me, Mario.
Yeah, like, I think that's really important to kind of, to look at. And to piggyback even off that even more, or to expound on that, marriage, I don't think, is 50-50 all the time.
No, it's not.
Sometimes.
I was, when we go back into speaking about the mantras that some of the OGs gave, I'll speak on my portion. A lot of the older guys always told me that you always say, yes, honey. Even if it's something that you may not be 100% agreed with, unless it's something like, we should sell the house. Okay, honey. Like, of course, that you don't say that. But if it's something simple like, honey, I'm thirsty. Would you mind getting me a glass of water? Yes, honey. Of course. Because those are parts of love language. Those are parts of, I'm willing to get up and, do something for you because this is a sign of my love for you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So the OGs always told me that always say, yes, dear. Yes, honey. And, always, do sweet things to your wife to let her know that, hey, I may be working or I may be doing a bunch of things, but I do love you, and here's some of the signals that I'll show you that I love you. Little forget-me-nots type shit,
I like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
I like that. And so that kind of even proves that, it's not 50-50. Some days you're going to have to be the 80 and your partner's the 20.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you're the 100 and they're 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important to kind of...
That's such a great point, sweetheart.
I think that's really important to realize because that 50-50 thing, that's kind of like work-life balance. Everybody can always try to strive towards work-life balance, but something will always be lacking. In your marriage, maybe the sex is really great and, this week, and your finances are stable and your communication is completely off.
Yeah.
Or, any scenario of different things that you're juggling.
Or y'all moving like a corporation, but the sex is trash one week. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just it's ups and downs of marriage. It goes like that.
And I think over time, if you understand those balances and you know, like, oh, it's always going to come back around. Like, I've even heard you say that sometimes, where you'll be like, all right, this is happening this week, and I'm not really feeling it, but I know next week will be different because you
Yeah.
know, like it kind of balances itself out.
Yeah. And it happens with time. You know, it takes a lot of time to learn, like, and that's why I think that moment that I mentioned earlier was such a strong point. Like, you can't learn your wife in 5 years, Brody. Like, you can't learn your wife in 10 years. You got to spend time with her, like, and learn every single mannerism from the moment she wakes up to the moment she goes to bed to fully understand what it is about her. Like, for instance, my grandparents, my grandmother used to say, oh, that's just how, Sonny is, and I
Mm-hmm.
just forget that. Or, Grandma Betty would say, oh, that's just how June is,
Mm-hmm.
They've had 20 years in the bank,
Yeah.
of relationship, savings. So you have to learn each other's mannerisms, learn what makes them tick, and then you can just form and congeal together and just become this force.
I figured out a lot of different quirks and things about you. Like, if I feel like you're overreacting in a moment, if I just like kind of let the dust settle, I would say 8 times out of 10, you'll come back and be like, yeah, I was a little OC. I'm sorry, but I was
Yeah,
just trying to
and
say this.
apologize. Yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted this. And I don't carry it with malice. If you didn't come back and you didn't say anything, because I've been with you for so long, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't give you any slack for it. But
Sometimes
the
I have
fact
to.
that you do that
Yeah.
gives me like, it's one of the reasons why I'm like, that's why I married him.
Sometimes I have to pick at you because you're such a strong woman. Like, I don't know where the fuck you got this strength from. Like, you just have this aspect about you that just like, oh, I can take it. I can deal with it. And you just shrug everything off your shoulders. So sometimes I have to be the protector and just put my arms around you, or, you know, pick at whatever your thought process is. And then eventually you'll blossom out and you'll share your thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, babe, like, I wanted you to express your feelings. I wanted you to, to talk it out. And me being the very expressionary one, whether it's anger, happiness, or whatever, for you, like, I feel like you suppress a lot of that. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned over the years to, like, even if my baby tells me it's okay, I gotta ask her like 6 times, you know what I'm saying, to make sure she's truly good. And then I'm like, all right, she really is good.
Because I think for a long time, I never worried about like, I always was like, all right, Teonna, you got your own happiness. Like, you don't need anybody for that. You are here to make others happy. Like,
Right.
so that's your mission. And I relied on the fact that I always bounced back and found a way. I
Mm-hmm.
relied on that instead of allowing others to encourage me and to bring me up in my moment,
Right.
because I feel like I do that. I try to do that for others, but when it's time for me to do that with them, I can't bring myself to do it. Like, I can't.
Well, I talked to Sissy about this the other day. Well, I think you overheard it, and you were like, "What? I need things?" Like, I'm like, "Nah, baby, you don't need things." You know what I'm saying? I was just saying that you're the giver in the relationship, so it's my job to be more of a giver myself. I have to make sure that you have those things that you like, but you're always being the matriarch of the family, and you're like, "Oh, well, maybe I can put this off next week." No, it's my job to make sure that you have that. So, I was just sharing with her that, like, it's my job to make sure that you are finding things that you enjoy and creating time for you aside from the family.
So you talked a little bit about like I guess we talked about like how in those moments where you're having an argument or disagreement, kind of using it as a time to reflect. Do you think is being right, like, should that be the MO when you're having an argument?
No, no, you do not have to be right in every argument. I do think that it is essential to have, your wife or your other half to feel where you're coming from.
Okay.
Even if you right, don't live that shit down. Cause I mean, there's some arguments that I could truly argue with you for like 5 hours for real, and truly be right. Or there's some arguments that you could truly argue me down for 5 hours and be like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure this dude knows that I'm right. But sometimes it's like, you know what? It don't even matter because at the end of the day, whether it's right or wrong, me and you are both gonna take this journey together, and we're gonna ride through this whether it's right or wrong. I think
Yeah.
about early career changes, and you just riding with me, whether you thought it was right or wrong. You rode with me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, same thing with T. If you think that you wake up one day and you just want to do a whole entirely different career, you know what? Whether I think it's right or wrong, I'm gonna ride with you. You know why? Because I got your back. It's different.
Yeah, and the only reason I took that approach is because I've just heard too many, I've seen too many stories play out where one person resents the other person. And I never wanted you to, when we're 45, 50, say, I didn't get to live my dreams because you thought they were stupid,
You're
or
very
you thought
supportive.
they weren't worthy, or you made me feel as though I couldn't do that. And so
Yeah.
what one person values, you should support that as long as it's not something that is doing them physical harm or you physical harm.
Right.
Like you should support them through that journey.
And vice versa. That's why I encourage you to write, and I encourage you to do all these different things, is because I want to make sure that, not really for the resentment on my end, but it's just to make sure that everyone else sees the same gifts that I see. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I want to make sure that you're you know just you're letting the world see your gifts. It's almost like a disservice to not share your gifts. And someone like me who's very eccentric, and art based, I feel like it's almost like a crime to not vocalize yourself if you do have a gift. So I try to encourage you to do that.
What do you think is the most challenging, like in a marriage? What are some things that can be challenging?
Personal opinion wise or generalized?
Your opinion.
My opinion is that, as an introvert, I honestly think that it's hard for me to care about. Wow, this sucks. I've grown out of me being self centered. So, as an introvert, you love what? You love time by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, ultimately, it's like, this shit sucks. I'm going to just go and sit in a corner by myself and read a book or create art or do whatever the fuck I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're in a marriage, you have to consider the other person's path, their feelings, and all types of things. So, it's like it took time for me to kind of grow into that, and it was like kind of immature for me to just be like, well, I'm not feeling this shit right now, so fuck it, instead of
Mm-hmm.
sitting and work through it. I have a huge history of being a quitter. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I will start 100 projects and all of them sound promising, but I will quit every single one of them if I don't feel it.
So do you feel like marriage is one thing you don't quit?
Yeah, it's the first thing I committed to, and if you've noticed in my history, everything after that I've given some sort of commitment to, and it's worked out beautifully. Yeah.
Is that the only thing you think is challenging? Is that you feel like you're so introverted that you have to be mindful of that?
No, it's become second nature. Um,
But I'm saying, is that the only challenge that you feel?
yeah, because I feel like that I'm very easygoing. And if I've made a commitment to one person, that even in relationships past, I've never had a problem with stepping outside of a relationship or anything like that, unless if it was something I took seriously. You know what I mean? So it was like, I don't have a problem with that at all. It was just my problem. Commitment was a problem for me before I got married. And it was just like I couldn't commit to anything because I was taught as a child to, oh, well, you're Travis. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm like, you know what? You're right, Mom. you know, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. But sport commitment and things like that. Even if I didn't feel like that, I quit after 10th grade. I was just like, whatever. I don't feel this anymore. But I could have pushed myself and worked and gained
So
that notoriety.
could that be a challenge? Is that a challenge for you to keep recommitting yourself and working through? Is that a challenge for you?
It isn't really.
Oh.
Honestly, it isn't. It's something that I don't feel like is movable.
Mm-hmm.
Some things you just are never going to change. Like, okay, this may be a terrible, explanation, but I'm black. That's never going to change. Once I put that ring on my finger, that's never going to change. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those immovable pieces in my life that gains stability.
For people that have like commitment phobias, I think the most important thing that at least I know I told myself, because people would, not that they would, but I think like someone would think, well, getting married, how do you know you're not going to get cheated on? How do you know it's going to be forever? How do you know that you're making the right decision? And one thing that I remember telling myself was, if this is meant to be, then it's meant to be. And if it doesn't go the way that I intended to go, that's okay. Like, I think you should be sure about the person that you're going to marry. You should definitely have some confidence in that. But knowing that if things, went an unexpected direction, don't feel like a failure. Just know, like, this just, it just didn't work out. I poured everything that I had to pour into it, and it didn't work out. And the one thing that I'm grateful for is that I feel like I'm pulling just as much as you are pulling.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's not at the same time. That goes back to that ratio.
The scary part is that I didn't think that I was that type of dude. Like, honestly didn't think I was the type to, like, be super committed to anything because it's my world all the time. Like,
so were
he's
a young man. Scared of, like, getting married and then not being into it after a while?
Yeah.
You were? You never told me that, Travis Scott.
Like, I mean, in my youth, like, not before I got... When you make the decision to get married, you don't go into it thinking like, man, this shit might not work, dog. I might have to step off right quick.
Some
you know
people
what I'm saying?
do.
Like, nah.
And maybe that should be a sign they shouldn't do it.
Do people really think like that, yo?
They do.
Come on, man.
They do.
Nah, none of the dudes I know, man. They're like, yo, like, if they feel like they like that, they're like, nah, bro, I'm not trying to get married. You ready for that, dog? You ready? That's the classic tone. It's like, you ready for that, man? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm ready for that. Man, you sure, dog? You know what I'm saying?
I think we were like the first to get married in a lot of our friend groups.
Yeah, we were.
And even, I'm trying to think, I feel like even in...
Come on, T, we made people sick when we was teenagers.
We did.
They knew it was going to happen eventually. Even if we had, like, pitfalls. They knew it was going to happen.
We did.
And,
but that's another important thing that I feel like never like downplay the other person or talk shit about them to your family and things like that, because especially if you know that it's a possibility that you may be with that person, because then you're going to paint this awful picture into someone's mind. Like, yeah, your close friends, like, they should understand and kind of, if you feel like you need to share the journey with them, that's fine. If you feel like you can't contain it yourself. But, like, going around and bad-mouthing the other person and pointing out every negative flaw that they have doesn't work in your favor. And that's how you get couples in your family that you turn and whisper and say, oh, remember when he did this? Or remember when she was talking about that? Now look at him. Like,
can I speak on something real quick?
Speak on it.
So, like, my grandmother is not, my maternal grandmother is not for the faint of heart. But my wife has never had a negative experience with my maternal grandmother.
No.
She loved her from the moment she seen her.
If anything, I feel like she was just interested.
Yeah, but but you know, I remember I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother, and the similarities are almost scary. Like,
So in that
yeah,
time, the second time that we broke up and you lived with her, like, she never said anything negative?
not one word.
I feel like you said negative things about me, though.
No, no,
From
no,
being hurt, I feel like you did.
no. I think that when we first broke up that second time,
You definitely told your mom, because she definitely relayed those things to me.
well, you know, that conversation was probably not the highlight of my life, but you know,
But you,
I never outside of my mother, I never shared
oh, okay.
those feelings
Because
with anyone else in the
your mom
family.
is something different. Like, I did share a few things with my mom, or if I, got emotional and, she was there for me. But as far as everybody else, I never.
Yeah, and it was the same way with me. So I think we had a mutual respect for each other. Even when I was in the mode of dating, I just had such a high level of respect for you. And even though you may or may not agree with it, I did have that high level of respect, and I was just like, she's off the table. Like, the conversations are bad about, she's off the table, and it was just like it almost falls into like, why do people have baby mama type of conversations? Because at this point, if you have that type of level of respect and there's any type of drama, y'all might as well try that relationship out. You know.
So don't marry someone you don't respect.
Whoo.
Because I'm always
Yeah.
trying to tie it
Okay.
back to our topic.
Oh my God.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that was the message that I got out of us talking about
Ooh.
that is don't marry someone you don't
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah. I respected the shit out of you, baby. Excuse my French, but I was just like, yeah, she's off limits. Period. Yeah, you know, you're infatuated with all the things when you're in your 20s, all the things you're infatuated with. But I'm like,
Ass.
okay, Big Sean. But yeah, some things are off limits. It's like, oh, and then like I think about it sometimes. I just walk through our house and I walk through our property and I'm just like, wow. Like, I talk to our children. I'm like, look at these intelligent children. Like, how did I produce these immaculate children? Like, I don't even understand like how our genes even merge together. Cause like, it's just amazing, and it just reminds me daily that I made the right decision.
And I want to kind of give a little bit of a disclaimer. Like, I feel like because we worked hard and had a vision, which it always can improve, always can get better. But I feel like because we had a vision, we legit, not even playing, guys, every 2 to 3 days look at each other and we say, man, we did this. And it's not that we live in $1 million home or even
Nah,
a
we
half a
don't.
million dollar
Nah,
home.
not even
It's
that.
not that we have a renovated this and that, because we don't.
Nah, we
We are
don't.
sitting in our unfinished basement right now.
Yeah.
It's not that we
97.
have any of those. Like, it's legit because
We made it work.
we made it work and we had nothing.
We had nothing.
We had
We
nothing.
ate banquet dinners, dog.
And so I think you have to measure your success based on where you started and where you are. So when I think about our relationship and I think about where we started and where we are, I'm grateful for that. And keeping that in the forefront, it really does help me. It really does help me. It just does.
And just as another disclaimer is that I feel like you know, a lot of men share that once they get married that a woman makes the home or a wife makes the home, and I agree with that 100%. You know, my wife grounded me, and she helped my focus, she helped my career, and we succeeded together. So it wasn't something that like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna just go off and become this super successful guy without my wife. I feel like my wife gave me that missing link that I needed. So it was amazing.
So you know how we kind of talked about earlier, like that quote of someone walking ahead of you, someone walking like beside you. Who do you think? Who do you think would walk beside us?
Man, power couple. I love Larry and Camilla.
That's what I was
I
thinking
think they're
too.
super fucking dope. Larry.
We don't know a lot of married people,
Yeah.
and we don't get to see them or talk with them.
Yeah,
Often.
Larry's a childhood friend of mine.
Yeah.
And, he's a minister, and I
We
feel
got
like he's my spiritual guide, man.
We got married the same year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. And I remember he texted me, he said, man, you couldn't wait. And I was like, man, I couldn't wait. I had to put that ring on her finger, man. And
Yeah, we got married
so
in February,
excited.
and they
Yeah,
got married in May.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, Larry and Camilla is one. I would like to gain more of a relationship with Mac and his wife.
Oh, yeah, we've been out with them a couple times. They're really sweet.
Yeah, Mac and his wife are awesome.
Why
yeah.
do you think it's important to have people that walk beside you?
I feel like it's sort of like everyone's walking the path with you, as opposed to walking the path by yourself. So especially for young married men, I don't care how youthful you are, you need a brother to talk to. Your single friends are awesome. Don't ever get rid of your single friends, but your married friends, they're going to be able to relate to you, man. Like, you're going to have that conversation like, damn, dog, man, it's like 8:30, man. I came home, bruh. There wasn't no food on the stove, man. The kids was running around, bruh. Like, what's going on out here? And your homeboy that's married, too, would be like, well, damn, dog, you worked every day, but, your wife was tired, and them kids still running around. That means she exhausted. So what did you do, dog? You know what I'm saying? What you do, big dog? Did you cook dinner? Did you check on your wife, make sure she good? You know what I'm saying? You make sure she happy? Because she going to wake up the next day and do the same thing. She do this 7 days a week, homie. You know what I'm saying? So, like, your married friends are going to check you. Whereas your single friends be like, man, that's wild, bro. If I was married,
Oh
man, I'd be,
I've had that experience a few times where it was like, I wouldn't have dealt with that. Or, what you mean? What, you got a curfew? Like, I've dealt with those type of situations, and then
Exactly.
you just, you have to go about it in a different way. But I noticed that in those moments, okay, like I said, we married for 6 years. We might have gone out with other couples 5 times. Okay? So in those...
Well, when you have kids, it takes a toll.
I know, I understand.
I would
I'm just
love
saying,
to go out with my uncle and my aunt,
Oh, yes.
my maternal uncle and
I
aunt.
was going to tell you what I kind of like about those situations.
Yeah, go ahead, baby.
I like that in those moments, I get to see you as like my date, and like hearing you carry conversations with another couple, and we're all laughing and joking and having these discussions. It makes me look at you in such a different light. Like, oh yeah, I forgot how cool Trav is, because I see him grumpy, and I see him stressed out, and I see him, chasing after the kids, and I see him working on his passion, and I see him trying to figure out our finances, and I see him doing housework.
I love you, sweetheart. Yeah.
But I don't get to see him like laugh and talk about that one time he went to the strip club for a bachelor party. Like, it's dope to kind of like, it's dope to have those moments and be able to talk about them and,
That's super dope,
and look at each other.
I think about the same way about you. Like, I'm like, wow, like how, every man's like ideal woman is like Claire Huxtable, right? Mm-hmm. So like successful lawyer, but still comes home and deals with Theo and Rudy and all them. You know what I'm saying? And then when you go out, and I'm like, wow, my wife really controls the fucking room. Like, I remember when we came back home after we got married. Well, not came back home, but when we went to the restaurant after we got married, and you walk through the room, and I swear to God, every man turned their eye, and I'm like, yeah, I won, dog. I won. And then, like, when you go in, when you sit down and you have a conversation, like, I remember when we sat down with my buddy John, a.k.a. Shells, and his wife, and, all those guys, like when you sit down in a room and you just start talking, like
Oh
everybody
yeah, that was
sits
before they
and
were.
listens.
That was before they were married.
Yeah, that's before they got married. And everybody just sits back and listens like, let me listen to her, man. Like, you just control the room, and I'm just like,
So the
wow,
key
it's the
thing I
energy
hear
I
you
love.
saying is like you love when you actually like can see me, because no lie,
Yeah,
the monotony sometimes of like doing the same routine sometimes it can throw off how you view your partner.
yeah,
And so looking at them a little bit like, oh, I forgot they got the sauce for real. Like
yeah, facts.
it's
Big
refreshing.
facts. Yeah,
It's
man, like,
actually refreshing.
it also reminds you that you're not a lame too, because like, because you're like, yo, you got this other side that's just like, man, like, how did I book this pretty jump? But it's going to be a couple people that hate.
And couples, I think it's so important to love on other couples. So, like when you go out with them or you hang around them, if you notice something that they do or something in their marriage, speak on it. Say it. Notice it.
Larry and Camilla are famous for that,
They are. They do
and
a
I
really
love them
good
for
job
that.
at that.
I love them for that.
Yeah.
Because I remember one moment when Camilla mentioned, she said, "Larry, do you hear how, Travis and Teonna talk to each other?" And he said, "No, babe. Talk to me about it." He said they use sweet words in every sentence that they speak to each other. And I was like, wow, I never noticed that we talk like that, yo. Like,
And they're
they say
very,
honey and baby and sweetie and sweetheart. You know what I mean?
and to me, like they're very, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say touchy feely, but like I feel like if they're in a booth together, they're like huddled in
Yeah,
close.
they
Or
they bund up.
yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
bund up.
they do,
Facts. They
they do.
caking.
Or when they came over for my 4th of July cookout, like
They was caking
they
then. Yeah, they was caking then.
yeah.
And we're more of a vocal. When we PDA, we PDA. You know what I'm saying? But
No, we don't.
that's why I say it's not really PDA. It's more like discretionary PD. You
Oh
know what I'm saying?
Lord.
But yeah, they're very PDA. They're very touchy feely. But we use sweet words to let each other know that that we're in love and we appreciate each other.
Yeah.
And that's something that happened naturally. I don't feel like we had to have a class or something like that. I've been calling you baby since like as early as I can remember.
Yeah.
Like I don't even call you. You said it's weird when I say Teonna.
Oh, I hate it. When you say my name, it sounds so foreign to me because you always like it was always when we were little. When we were little. When we were young, you would call me Chunk Monk and like other things, and then if you did say my name, the closest to it you said was T. So if you say Tiana, I know you're annoyed with me.
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, Tiana, I'm like, ugh.
He said that shit ugly as fuck.
Yeah, it does not
Ugly
sound
ass nigga, boy.
it does not sound natural
Yeah.
coming out of your mouth, and it bothers me. But you were talking about other couples. You said, like Mike and Monica, you want to know and listen and reflect more with them
they're
in the
such an
future.
awesome couple, man. Like, and my uncle's such a G, man. Like, he's he is so family oriented. And they had a son over the last few years, and they've been just like bringing this whole family togetherness together, man. And it's just it's such an inspiration to me.
Yeah, and then there's Jeanette and James.
Jeanette and James are dope.
We haven't sat and reflected like as couples or chopped it up as
Mitch
couples.
and Nicole.
Mitch and Nicole
are fire.
They live in Pennsylvania. I miss her.
Yeah, they used to live in an apartment.
We never
doors
went
down.
out to dinner or anything though. But we have like
Mitchell
gone
poured
to
down with me, man.
we've gone to events of theirs, and they're
His
awesome
wedding,
as
their
well.
wedding was awesome.
That was my favorite
We partied
wedding
our ass off.
of all time.
And then remember, we went to the hotel. We got some good rest, and we woke up the next day and we went to this beautiful vegan restaurant in Pennsylvania.
That's when we were vegan. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
Man.
facts.
But yeah, it was nice, and I think it was nice because we didn't have the kids for a couple days, and it was like a breather. And we chose to like use that time to like build and love on us and to celebrate them. So that was a really good time.
And that was the first Caucasian wedding that I went to where they played some 2 Chainz. Yo,
Really.
he was out here, and I was like, "Thank you for the love of the hip hop, man." But it was awesome. We had a great time. They're beautiful people, man, and congratulations on their new baby.
Yay.
Yeah.
So there are married couples out there. I think we just maybe after quarantine is over and we get back to life,
Back to
we'll
life.
probably try to prioritize hanging out with different couples because I do think it's a different energy that it brings that's good and refreshes your own marriage. There's no one
I
that
agree.
well, I guess Shells and his wife. I was gonna say there's no one that's like behind us that's newly married other than them.
Yeah. Carrie and John got married a few years after us, and feel like he's making great strides. I talk to him all the time because that's my homeboy since like I was like 15. But as they get older, I feel like we're still early in our stages
We are.
of marriage. So when we get to that 10-year mark, we may be able to have a married party where we just kind of have a good time and we can share our, a newly acquired OG of mine is Sharon and Derek.
Oh
They're
yes.
amazing. And Derek has been teaching me so many things about being about being a married man and
And
raising his
Lord,
sons. Yeah, and
when
he's very religion oriented, and that's been weighing on me a lot, and it's been shedding off on me too.
and
So
I like to hear people's honest stories and accounts and I did get bits and pieces of their love story and I just admire it. I like hearing when things aren't like so linear. Like that happens. Yes, it does happen where, you fall in love and you get married and you have kids or you don't have kids and, you live happily ever after. But there are times where people break up, where people,
exactly.
have different experiences, where people have kids before they get married. There's like all these different scenarios that happens, and I don't think that it makes one better than the other. But one of the things that I feel I brought into our marriage is that when we had that time apart, talking with some younger people that were married and hearing from the guy's perspective of like why he thought it wasn't working and then realizing that even though I wasn't married in my relationship with you, I did some of those things
Exactly,
and
and it
feeling
was
like,
the
oh
basis of
wow,
marriage.
like
I
he
agree.
views this negatively in his marriage. And here I thought I was, perfect. And I did some of those things. And, I need to really, really
Well,
cop to those.
and this will probably be my final thought, is that I thought a lot of different things before I was married, but I ultimately had an idea of what I expected out of marriage after we got married. You share it all the time that, wow, my husband is a totally different person after marriage. And I don't set that expectation like it. Yo, if your guy isn't on his stuff, and you're wondering if you marry him if it's going to change, it's probably not going to change. But if he has those traits and he has a good background, for me personally, it was religion based. I grew up in the church and I didn't live that lifestyle, but I did know for some reason marriage was sacred in my heart, and that once marriage happened, all of the other stuff didn't occur. So
Yeah.
once I was married, this is my wife. She's covenant, and that's it. There's no other option, brother. So that
And
that was it.
I think you see it all the time or you hear about it all the time of people talking about it now. But it's great to love your partner, but don't just marry for love. You also have to like the person because there are days where you're going to feel like the butterflies aren't there and you have to be able to like them through that patch of time. Yeah. So, because some people I feel like they'll say, I don't feel the same way about you anymore. Therefore, I deserve to be happy and we need to get a divorce. But if you genuinely like the person, then I feel like it's easier. Like, I love you, but when there are times that we are at odds, I like you enough to hear your opinion. I like you enough to respect it. I like you enough to push forward and say, okay, what's the plan? Even when, I say a few curse words and fly off the handle, the other person has to be like, all right, bring it back together. And we fight
Exactly.
fair.
Yeah,
I feel like we
exactly.
fight fair. We know, like, we don't name call. We don't do any of that, because you may have 5 minutes of like a heated argument and then an hour of de-escalation. So you don't want certain things to be thrown around and said, especially when you still here. You're not leaving. You're not going out that door.
Exactly. And that's something that I had to grow in as well.
Yeah, because I definitely would tell you, keep that same energy.
Monty, and that has been another beautiful episode of I Now
I
Pronounce You.
wasn't done.
And
We're
my
gonna
name is
have to
Trav.
do. We're gonna have to do. Are you really ending it?
Yeah, we're ending it, sweetheart.
We're gonna have to do a part 2 then, because there's definitely a lot more to talk about.
This will be part 1, and we'll do another part 2, baby.
All right. Bye. Oh, so should I not close out what I learned or what I heard?
Yeah, close out however you want to, sweetheart.
Okay. So basically, from today's episode, I realized you have to respect your partner. Don't marry someone you don't respect. And you have to look at the beauty in the moments that you have together and think about those things when you're going through rough patches.
And I would have to agree. Definitely marry someone you respect, because that's going to be your life partner for the rest of your life. It's going to be your other half. It's going to be the other half of the tough decisions that you're going to make, some of the major decisions in your life. If marriage isn't the most major decision that you're going to make in your life, just make sure that you got your road dog with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love my wife, and she's right there beside me, and she hasn't hindered me. And a lot of y'all young brothers think that when y'all get married, that your wife is going to hinder you. Brother, she's going to elevate you, dog.
If it's the right person, yeah.
If it's the right person, she's going to elevate you to such a high level. I couldn't even explain to y'all, man. Like, but yeah.
Well, this has been another episode of I Now Pronounce You. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening. You can follow us at I Now Pronounce You on Instagram, and you can contact us at I Now Pronounce You pod@gmail.com.